We don't really have an introduction.
We can just do sort of how do other podcasts start other than with all of the musical stuff?
Welcome back to Gibbs It To Me Straight, a podcast that deconstructs NCIS. I'm Ashley J. Williams, and my co-host is...
Robby Thesword. Hello.
How are you doing today, Robby?
You know what? It is early. It is mid-afternoon. I have played 2 different video games. I've eaten a cookie and multiple pieces of chicken. And I feel aglow with power.
You are living the dream. You seem blissfully unaware of current events, and that's a state that I recommend for people in general.
You know what? Now is the time to be furiously ignorant and fastidiously vigilant.
That's fantastic. So let's just talk about briefly our roles here. I don't do anything except respond, so that's what I do.
Well, at least on this side of the show, that is the case.
Yeah, and you've put in a significant amount of effort at this point in kind of watching the episodes and deconstructing them and taking notes and so forth. I think you've even drawn out some clips.
I have. So I've got clips today for the episode we're going to be reviewing. I've got my notes here in front of me, and we are going to hope that I manage to put all of the things in the correct order. I think we're going to be just fine, but I need to remind you, we have our little introductory game for every episode, which is Freaky Agent Bundy.
I had completely forgot about that. And in my defense, this is episode 1. So
this is episode 1. So, hey, now's a perfect time to forget. So, listeners, for everyone that probably doesn't know what I'm talking about, and also my kind co-host that doesn't know what I'm talking about, Freaky Agent Bundy is taken from the fact that primary character and star of NCIS, Mark Harmon, is obviously an agent. He is Agent Gibbs, the namesake for this podcast in NCIS. He was, I can't even remember his name in Freaky Friday. He was in the Jamie Lee Curtis, Lindsay Lohan Freaky Friday movie. And the Bundy comes from a movie he did, a TV movie he did back in the 80s called The Deliberate Stranger, where he plays Ted Bundy.
You know, he just has too nice of a face to play a serial killer.
See, I think that's what everybody thought about Zac Efron too, and he played the exact same guy. Okay, so we have a little game called Freaky Agent Bundy here. So the reason I have those 3 names is that I'm going to play a clip at the beginning of, let's hope, every episode, and my co-host Ashley J. Williams is going to guess where that clip came from. It's either going to be coming from Freaky Friday, NCIS, or from The Deliberate Stranger. So we have...
I just want to confirm my choices here. I have Freaky Friday, NCIS, and what was the last one?
The last one, let's just say Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy.
Just say, that's Ted Bundy.
Okay.
So this is number 1.
Harrison was sitting right here.
I can't risk those plans getting out on the internet.
I think I'm going to guess NCIS.
Yeah. It is. I figured it would be too mean for me to pull from either a movie from like the exact same year. The part of the problem is that The Deliberate Stranger was a TV movie from like 1986. So there aren't exactly many high quality recordings. So yes, that is 1 point. I guess somewhere along the lines, maybe listeners, you can keep count of how many points. Maybe if you get it correct, you get a point. If you don't, then I get a point.
We can say, we can ask our listener. I think we have one listener right now. So shout out to our friend, whose screen name is Truly Esoteric. I was talking to her the other day and she said, "Are you guys doing this just for me?" And, why not? We're doing it just for her. Yeah.
I mean, it very well could be for at least a small period of time.
So, it's possible that movie, who knows, maybe it'll turn up at a flea market or something.
Oh, you know what? That would be very nice to be able to find a copy of it. And I've been having difficulty finding a copy of Freaky Friday because I think whenever I was younger, we had a copy of it. But seeing as now, this is something that most people don't believe. Seeing as I, a member of the generation of Z, I grew up with many VHS tapes.
That's not surprising to me. What's surprising to me is that you're a Zoomer. I thought you were a millennial.
Oh, no. No,
Good
I
heavens.
am a few years into the Zoomers.
The feedback that I've gotten from our episode 0, which is kind of a test episode, is that you sound like the more mature one.
No,
and, emotionally, I believe that. Right?
Well, I certainly project that way, and it's for no reason I'm willing to go into right now.
Well, you definitely have a voice for radio.
Well, thank you.
So, okay, so we played our game. I have a point, so
Alrighty.
Hopefully I can have an unbroken streak of winnings. So today, I think, so correct me if I'm wrong, I believe what you've done is you've watched the very first premiere episode of NCIS, and you've kind of reacquainted yourself with it because you've seen it before, and you've taken some notes, and you're going to just kind of take me on a journey through this episode.
I'm basically going to end up retelling the episodes of this. I've gotten some clips out. I will get those. I will play them as they come up. Although I do want to note the clip that we've been testing with and that the audience heard very briefly a moment ago is basically how the episode starts. So we're just going to get right into it now. So episode 101, the pilot episode of NCIS, is called Yankee White, which is in some military or agent world is the term used for Air Force One.
Oh,
so
I did not know that.
The very first episode of this show starts with archival stock footage of George Bush, President George Bush, walking onto Air Force One, and then as soon as he walks inside, it cuts to a set. So the clip that we've been playing while doing audio testing, which is only about 15 seconds long, I'm now going to play in its entirety for the listener. Please be prepared. So this is immediately after W, the actual footage of W has cut, and now we're on a set on Air Force One.
Bobby, those baby backs from Papa Joe's make the flight?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. They were flown in from San Antonio 10 minutes ago, sir.
Good. Let's have an early lunch.
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
I love the baby backs from Papa Joe's.
I know, Mr. President.
They're treating it's crazy to me that they treat him like a child. Like that is my first thought, that they're just like, yes, Mr. President. Yes, Mr. President. We'll get you those ribs, Mr. President. It's
my initial reaction. I mentioned this when we were doing some testing, is that I'd forgotten just how much I hate George W. Bush. I guarantee you, I can go on. We could have a 3-hour episode about George Bush, the Iraq War, and how it radicalized me. But that's not what we're here to discuss.
Well, see, in a similar vein, unfortunately, we do have to keep talking about the president, and then we get to stop. The strangest thing to me, though, is that they make the choice, because in my memory, the thing that they did was they follow this impersonator of the president around and never show his face. They only have someone doing what is a decent impersonation of him, a decent vocal impersonation.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
But instead, they immediately show someone in pretty not great makeup or something doing his impersonation. And it's like, why did you immediately have to drop us out of it?
I wonder if that poor actor actually lists that on his IMDb page.
Oh, I think so. And I think they have posed as or played Bush in multiple different pieces of media.
Oh, what a horrible career choice. Like, he's locked into that career choice because he wanted to be an actor. He probably wanted to be a Shakespearean actor, but he kind of looks and can emulate George W. Bush. That's his acting career.
What a sad existence.
Yeah, what a sad fate.
Okay, so after they talk about the ribs, the man that sort of childishly says, yes, Mr. President, we'll have lunch early or whatever, he is the head of Secret Service. And he and this other guy, or this woman, who is actually one of our known characters, Caitlin Todd, are walking with the president, and they encounter this guy who is carrying the football for the president. His name is Commander Ray Trapp.
And for people who are not aware, the football is a set of nuclear codes that always accompanies the president wherever he goes. And I believe that the military officer that carries it has it handcuffed to his wrist.
Yeah, I think I don't know if they follow that in this episode, but I've heard that as well. Yeah, that they have this guy. He's sitting pretty close to like the president's office, like right by the entrance of the plane. And now there's a detail that I need to make sure I mention, which is that there was someone else named Major Carey who was supposed to be handling the football, but Caitlin Todd, who at this point is unnamed, says, "Oh, sorry, he had the flu. He is sick. So Commander Ray Trapp had to get in place." And then the woman then says to Trapp, who is carrying the football, that he's, quote, destined for stars on those shoulders, which is really strange because as I'm about to mention, that's a really weird thing for a main character to say to a throwaway character.
Right.
Because like, I hate to spoil, in the right after or before the intro sequence, that character is going to die.
Well,
anyway.
Yeah, he's wearing a red shirt. I mean, if he's not wearing a red shirt in reality, we know that he's wearing a red shirt.
Yeah. Okay, so immediately we go to the next scene. Agent Todd and Agent, I couldn't understand their name for the longest time, so I thought it was either Bear or Bayer, and I'm going to be calling them both. I'm just going to say Bear.
Okay.
And that's not going to make anyone confused. Apparently their actual name is Bowers, which no one fully enunciates until the end of the episode. So they say something about like whether or not they want food. They don't. Bear says he's going to go talk on comms to somebody and then tells Agent Todd, expect problems, and with a little luck, you'll never lose a president, to ratchet up the tension. This is only like 3 minutes into the episode.
There's a bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah. A little bit. So Commander Trapp walks out of the president's office, clearly because he just had lunch with the president. Walks out and is very clearly ill. He drops the football, he drops the suitcase, and then starts foaming at the mouth and then passes out. And that's when we go into the introductory sequence. The do-do-do-do-do. I can't remember the theme song for the life of me of this show. Like everyone remembers like the X-Files theme or the Breaking Bad theme song. I cannot remember for the life of me what this theme song sounds like.
Oh, as an aside, in preparation for this, and I sent you a file of kind of a mock intro to this podcast, and I had found the theme song and, kind of took a slice out of it and spliced it in. So I can't hum it for you, and the reason even though I've heard it probably a dozen times while editing that file, because it is so entirely forgettable.
It is. It is so basic that whenever I was like, I want to make like a parody, like, those like joke songs that are like, it's a chord progression and the last 3 notes are different to make you think it's one song, but it's actually another. Okay, so this is our cut to the intro or to the theme song, like I said. And then once we're out of there, we cut to Mark Harmon, the one and only, and he is woodworking in his basement. Action, everyone's so engaged.
Yeah.
So he's just a middle-aged dude working on the frame of a boat like you do. And he gets a phone call. He introduces himself as Gibbs. On the other line is another man who seems to be younger, who tells him about the situation on Air Force One that had to land in Kansas, and that the other guy on the phone booked them both a flight to go out on.
So it's he's coming out of retirement to like save the day.
It always seems like he is coming out of retirement, but no, this is just like who he is. Like he's still fairly young looking. This is just what he does. He just does something with a boat. So they get to the airport. Gibbs introduces himself to security, and he says like, "Hey, we're Leos." And then the airport security is like, "Yeah, I'm a Capricorn."
Right, law enforcement officer.
Yeah. Right. They repeat, they're law enforcement officers, yada, yada, yada. And then the security guy is like, and this, of course they did this. The security guy says, so you guys are NCIS. Is that anything like CSI? And then one of our other characters, Tony DiNozzo, replies, only if you're dyslexic. Okay, we go into a new scene. They get on the plane because one of the doctors is like, hey, those two are with me. That's fine. You can go through security. And then we cut to a new scene on Air Force One around the dead body.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, trap.
So we're back on Air Force One. They've landed somewhere in Kansas, and there is a man who is very clearly just stalling as much as he can, and we're sort of left not to really understand why. He's just like making up rules. The Secret Service is there. They want possession of the body. The FBI is there. They want possession of the body. Everyone wants jurisdiction because that's tension, that's storytelling.
The way you describe it, I've flown enough that I'm just picturing like a gate attendant trying to calm an angry crowd on a delayed flight.
It's a little bit like that, but it involves a bunch of government agents and one man from Kansas.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And he's just a real good Southern boy, even though he's from Kansas, which is like, I don't know, it's close. People can debate that about later. So basically what we learn later is that NCIS has called in a favor to this guy in order to keep them from taking the body until they get there.
So NCIS wants jurisdiction over this investigation.
They want jurisdiction.
Okay.
I can't remember like why they say they should get it. I think it's like maybe whatever guy that died was a naval officer. So an FBI agent named Agent Fornell has a little bit of a back and forth with Agent Todd. Todd explains the problem with the body. After they do so, Gibbs and Ducky, who is the coroner, show up.
Right, Ducky's the English guy. He's the older, quirky
Ducky's
English guy.
yes.
Okay.
He, like, as we'll later discover, every single time that Ducky does something, he seems to have a previous memory of when he's done that before.
Okay.
It's ridiculous. And they just, like, keep extending it as the show goes on. So Gibbs and Ducky show up, and Gibbs, despite being the head of this team, is masquerading as Ducky's assistant because they're both pretending to be the local medical examiner. They start like figuring out what they're going to do, and they delay long enough that it gets everyone else off the plane other than Agent Todd. They get everybody else off of the plane so that they can take off with the body back to Washington so that they can do all their own tests.
Okay. All right. I don't understand why they introduced it this way, right? Just let them take over the investigation.
Yeah, like, or like why in this and the next episode, whenever we get to it, that like they don't really portray everything in the greatest light. Like all of the people that work here are either like kind of weird or kind of scummy. They all leave the plane, and then in like 10 seconds, Agent Todd comes back and is like, all right, who the hell are you people? Because you're definitely not a medical examiner's assistant. Like literally she has her gun drawn. And he's like, we're NCIS, calm down. You know, we're taking over this investigation. And DiNozzo is like already trying to get them to take off, like trying to go to the pilot and being like, hey, we're NCIS, go fly us back to Washington without the FBI on the plane. They're literally trying to hijack Air Force One.
So let me get this straight. I'm sorry for interrupting, but it just dawned on me that the way you've painted this picture through words, you're a wordsmith, very good, that there's a bunch of government, federal level government security people milling in and about Air Force One because this key, functionary, this trap guy has died under mysterious circumstances. So you have FBI, Secret Service, the NCIS people show up. There's probably the Marshal Service. Who knows? Maybe the Varsity Service is there, right? And these two guys from NCIS basically trick all of those trained professionals and fool them into thinking that they're just local guys who are just there to kind of like do a little cleanup on the body. And so they trick all of those people, get them off the plane, and they're about to, as you just said, hijack Air Force One. Yes. That doesn't induce a lot of confidence in me about the integrity and proficiency of our security officials at the federal level.
Yeah, it really doesn't, does it?
But I got that right.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, and then Agent Todd figures out there's something fishy about these guys. Now, Agent Todd, just for clarity, and as the episodes progress, I'll be better with these names. She's a recurring character. Like she's with us throughout the remainder of the series. Okay, and she's Secret Service, if I recall.
She is Secret Service as of right now.
Okay, and all right, there's no spoiler. She eventually joins the team.
Yes.
Okay, but at this point, she's like, who are you?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I gotcha.
Okay, so during this conversation, basically, where Gibbs is trying to recruit Todd onto his team, he says, have you ever been a part of an investigation before? And she's like, well, I'm a Secret Service agent. And he kind of laughs and shrugs her off. And then, as I wrote in my notes, Gibbs then either makes the first transphobic joke of the series.
Okay.
We're about 10 minutes in, by the way, in terms of the episode, where Todd says, hey, I earned my jockstrap. And Gibbs replies, does it ever feel empty?
Oh, boy.
Then Todd either replies with the second transphobic joke or the first not transphobic one, because I can't remember what she says, but it's neutral enough that I can't tell.
Okay.
Then Gibbs basically just continues to strong arm her into letting them take the plane back to Washington, and then they shut the door of the plane in the FBI's face.
Right, that premise, by the way, is just utterly ludicrous.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
Right.
Okay, actually, speaking of, I think that takes us into the first of the clips we have. My note here says, a serviceable CGI plane coasts through the sky. Okay, so this one isn't very long, but it's just Gibbs then gets grilled for shutting up the FBI.
You have to literally slam a door on the FBI's face?
There were more of them than us.
There's always more of them than us. You ever hear of interagency cooperation?
Yes, sir. I got the Secret Service agent in charge at Wichita to agree to share the investigation.
Willingly?
Well, we could use a little backup when we landed Andrews.
That's what I thought. We're spread a bit thin. We've got enough agents.
If the FBI gets this body, we won't see an autopsy report until after they leak it to the Washington Post.
That is the first joke that is made about the Washington Post. Because they're, I don't know. What was the Washington Post like in 2003?
I think the entire country in 2003 was less involved in politics than they are today. And the media, though, was regarded as left-leaning. And, no government, no administration likes the press, period. Doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right, So I'm not surprised at all that they're presented as an obstacle, not necessarily as an enemy, but an obstacle. But I just also want to comment that I was expecting, and you delivered, that there would be someone standing in a big room with a lot of technicians and a giant screen on the TV talking to someone else. So thank you for that. I wanted that.
Oh,
and
this is just them doing comms on Air Force One whenever they get back to NCIS like base headquarters. Then they definitely do that as well.
I love it. It gives Batcave-esque feelings,
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Okay. During that same conversation we just heard a clip from, Gibbs makes another transphobic joke, and then leading in or out of that one, I guess, Tony, Agent DiNozzo, who we haven't really seen a whole lot of, he's just been here and there, goes up to Agent Todd and says, hey, I need you to move because I need to take some measurements for some sketches. So we have another clip here.
We'll check. Excuse me. You'll need to stand clear so I can take measurements for my crime scene sketches. Thanks.
Sketches? You've taken a dozen photos.
Tell me her measurements.
You're pathetic.
No, I'm serious. Can you tell if she's 5'4" and a 34C or 5'7" and a 36D? You can't. Not from a photo. That's why we do sketches. Take measurements. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I thought maybe we had a glitch there. Also, I was speechless. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. This is just the beginning.
So I'm just getting introduced to these characters, and you told me in episode 0 that particular character, DiNozzo, right? That he, throughout the series, is crass and sexist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that is the first word. That is our introduction to his crassness.
Yeah, that is like the second or third time he speaks in the show.
I see. Okay, yeah, and our sole listener out there hates him, his character.
Yes, she told me the same thing. which I like. I didn't really know of him until this show, obviously. And after this show, he's basically not had a career. He's been in one other show. And now he has a podcast with another star of NCIS, which is about NCIS. And I think they're about to be on another NCIS spinoff together. So like his career is almost entirely NCIS or whatever that other show he was on.
So, but there's like 75 seasons of this freaking show, right? So he could make a career.
There's so many.
Yeah. That's actually a gravy train for that guy. He probably doesn't even have to work that hard.
Oh, I mean, there's like 300 or 400 episodes or something like that. So, yeah, I can imagine or I'd at least hope that the syndication is bringing in some good funding for him for whatever he does.
He's not missing any meals.
All right. Let me see. So right after this, Gibbs and Todd start exploring the plane a little bit more. And Gibbs is kind of grilling her about the fact that she doesn't really know how to do a criminal investigation. And while they're walking around, he finds like some room. Actually, that is the clip that our Freaky Agent Bundy was from, where he says, "Yeah, this is where Harrison was sitting in the movie."
Okay.
That's from whenever he just like finds a boardroom and he's like, "Hey," while they're in that room and they're arguing, Gibbs says like, "Well, hey, if I'm wrong, then you can shoot DiNozzo." and Agent Todd says, "No, I think I'm probably destined to shoot you."
Okay, so now, we're setting up some friendly rivalry.
Yes. And in addition to that, like there is a really weird mix that this show does of I'm really not sure what we're supposed to make of the lives of these characters, because there is some really weird tension that we see primarily between Agent Todd and Agent Gibbs, not between DiNozzo and Agent Todd, which would feel more natural because they're closer in age.
Right.
Like there are multiple moments throughout this whole episode where Gibbs and Agent Todd just stare at each other in silence for like 5 to 10 full seconds. Okay. It's really weird. Let me see. Okay, then we have, now this is a matter of record keeping for me. This is something that I wanted to keep track of, which is that Gibbs has very famously multiple rules. He has so many rules, and they're sort of an inside joke that are done throughout the show. So in this first episode, we get 2 of them almost back to back. So I'm just going to let these play back to back. Okay, here we go. This is rule number 1 and 2.
Number 1, never let suspects stay together.
She didn't consider them suspects.
I just want to say that my understanding is that the Secret Service, they're actually part of the Department of Treasury. And part of their remit is to track down counterfeiters.
Yeah.
So I would think that an experienced Secret Service agent would actually have some experience conducting an investigation and potentially a criminal investigation, right? Because counterfeiting is criminal.
They probably would, wouldn't they?
Yeah. So that, just the whole premise here is that, and I'm starting to realize why, if I had seen the first few minutes of this show, I would have rejected it outright. So this is ridiculous.
Okay, so that was rule number 1, which was never let suspects stay together. And then immediately after, while they're walking down the same hallway, he tells her a different one.
Consider them suspects.
And why'd you hold them? Put these on.
My fingerprints are all over this aircraft.
Rule number 2.
Always wear gloves at a crime scene.
Okay,
I don't know why I cut it there.
I think I could be a Secret Service agent.
Yeah, it seems pretty simple. Okay, so whenever they come back, Ducky is testing the body, and he's realized that there is a discrepancy between the time that he has calculated for the time of death for the body and the time of death that was calculated by the doctor on the plane. They also, we learn during this section, how Ducky always tends to just like randomly go off on a story that is entirely unrelated to whatever he's doing right now. And they constantly have to go, hey, dude, just focus, please.
Bring it back. Focus. Yep.
Yeah. And then I guess I didn't get the clip, but the next rule on here, whenever they are like, hey, we have an hour discrepancy, that's when Gibbs says very dramatically, never believe what you're told. And then I think Agent Todd then sort of sarcastically remarks, I'll make sure to put these in my Palm Pilot. If we're back into the game, welcome back. Hello.
Yep.
We are back from our break.
So we're on Air Force One. We've been introduced to Gibbs, and he's kind of a little bit of a quirky but very masculine character.
Very much so.
Agent Todd, who, we were setting up a little tension between, she's a Secret Service agent. There's a little tension between her and the team. The team is a little bit unorthodox because they've essentially hijacked Air Force One, which is not something you normally do every day and not something you expect a federal law enforcement official to do. And we've got a dead body, poor Commander Trapp. And the connection between him and NCIS is that he is a Navy officer. And so they have landed the plane, I think. They're in Andrews. I recall him saying that.
I think they're still on their way to Andrews, but they're almost there. Yes.
Okay. And we've already been introduced to a little transphobia, a little bit of sexism, right?
Yes.
So yeah, we're doing great. It's making me feel good about humanity. Let's go.
So right as we're near the end of this scene, while Ducky is continuing to explain that they have this differentiation between his own measurements about the time of death for this body and the time of death that the president's doctor found, Agent Todd very clearly begins to feel sick and needs to throw up. And whenever she runs for the bathroom, Gibbs chases her with an evidence bag and makes her throw up inside of it. Because it's evidence.
Somehow she's been poisoned by the same poison.
Because there's a possibility that she may just be poisoned.
Right.
Now, the only thing, and I don't know if I watched this more than once, I don't think I did, but the thing that I can't help but be irritated by is that they do this whole scene, it's very frenetic. And then they have on camera whenever she's coughing and hacking into this evidence bag, she doesn't throw up. She just coughs. She just coughs a bunch into the bag. Follow through.
Well, maybe that was in her contract. No,
maybe so.
Yeah, no regurgitation.
And good for her.
Oh yeah, I mean, I hate throwing up. I wouldn't, and I definitely wouldn't want to have a camera on me while I'm puking.
No, or even, especially fake puking.
Or fake puking. Yeah.
So also, sorry for emetophobic people. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we'll move on from the vomit.
Yeah,
okay.
we'll move on quickly, and instead we'll talk about the FBI. So. FBI agent Fornell, he's back, and Secret Service agent Bear are arguing over the phone again. This is the second time that they have this conversation this episode about whether or not NCIS, the FBI, or Secret Service should have jurisdiction over the body. The Secret Service agent is at some kind of dinner, which is clearly on a set, but they have used some archival footage and edited it in together to make it sort of feel like he is acting as security at a dinner fundraiser being given by the president. And they basically just end up agreeing that Caitlin Todd, Agent Todd, should turn over the body to the FBI as soon as they land at Andrews. And that's the end of it. That's all that they need to worry about going forward.
Okay.
So we're back to the gang, the NCIS gang, and Ducky tells Agent Todd that she probably has a stomach virus. That she's basically just got the flu. But it's definitely not the same thing that killed Commander Trapp, so they're okay.
Well, it does seem like a suspicious coincidence, but I'm not the professional, so I'm just going to trust in Ducky.
Well, we will come back to this later.
Okay.
Todd reveals she knows why she has the flu. And it's the same reason that Major Carey isn't there.
He's pregnant. No? Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, see, that would be a nice turn for this show. Unfortunately, what we get is the conversation, and this is, it's only hinted at whenever she says, I have the flu because Major Carey had the flu.
Oh.
And then there's a moment of silence, and there's just, nothing. There's just a beat of nothing.
Right.
And then I have no idea why she says this. Then Agent Todd says, "Did you think I was a virgin?" And Ducky replies, "I'd hoped not."
Okay.
Why does he say that?
Why did any of that happen? But
why did that have to happen? All of these people are working anyway.
Wait, before you play the clip, can I just ask in anticipation? Go ahead and spoil it for me. Is there any facility, utility, any reason in terms of plot device why Agent Todd and this military officer, and they're both assigned to Air Force One, Is there any reason why it's important that they they're implying that they have an affair?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or did they just move on and never mention it again?
There is a plot reason.
There's a plot reason.
There is actually like a fairly useful to the plot reason for it.
Okay,
but we just haven't gotten there.
I should tell you, what I think of the show. That I could easily believe that it was just a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, that it was just a throwaway to be weird.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. After they have this conversation, Gibbs and Todd just stare at each other for a while, and Agent Todd just sort of goes, well, aren't you going to yell at me about how it's, immoral to sleep with your coworkers? And Gibbs just goes, no. And they just keep staring at each other.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
Yeah.
I was hoping you were going to say that they just continued to stare at each other.
Yeah, and I need to mention that while this is happening, Agent Todd is laying down flat on a couch, and Gibbs is sitting on top of a table with his feet on the arm of the couch. So there's even a very clear, blocking difference in their levels of power.
Yeah, power dynamic. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So while Gibbs and Tony are talking about interrogating members of the staff of Air Force One, Ducky and Tony take turns taking pictures of each other in the president's chair because Gibbs is using the president's bathroom.
Well, I mean, if I was near the president's chair, I probably
would too. Depending on the period of time, who knows what else would happen.
Yeah, that's true. And who knows when you're going to get a chance to do that again.
Exactly, yeah. Although, and the joke is supposed to be they're trying to be as quiet as possible. And then Gibbs is like, if you guys were stop taking pictures, then we'd be able to get on with this or whatever.
There's a little no nonsense.
Yeah, gosh, he's no fun.
Yeah. I always thought Mark Harmon was a kind of a fun guy, but okay.
Well, see, the thing is, he does have some pretty funny moments. We'll get to one in a few minutes. He's got some decent comedic chops, but they just don't let him play around with that in this role. Okay, we're on to another scene of two people talking on the phone about the same thing as before. So this time it's Agent Todd and Agent Bauer debating again over the custody of the body. And at this point, Agent Todd is arguing that NCIS should have it. They're like, hey, we already have it. They've already determined time of death, yada, yada, yada. There's no reason it's just going to waste time. And then her superior, Agent Bauer, is just like, hey, if you don't, I expect you to resign. If you don't, then I'm going to make sure you never work on Air Force One again.
You'll never work on this plane again. Yep.
Exactly. But then again, why would you want to? Somebody just died.
Yeah, and also, why does she care?
Yeah.
Who has jurisdiction, right? And up to this point, she hasn't really interacted well with these miscreants that just showed up on Air Force One.
Yeah.
And now she's their advocate? Okay, all right. I have a suspension of disbelief. Okay.
Oh, and then after the phone call, Todd goes back to Gibbs and says, hey, they're basically forcing me to force you guys to give the body to the FBI. And immediately after this, there's a really bad editing choice right into a commercial break. And it's not the first poor editing choice that we're going to see within these first few episodes.
Well, they're trying to crank out episodes. So
I understand it, but it's just come on, guys. So we come back from this commercial break. FBI agent Fornell and a driver who we don't know the name of, we assume have just gotten the body from NCIS. And then a phone starts to ring again. And we hear this phone ring, and then we hear Tony DiNozzo answer his phone, but we don't see him anywhere. And it is then revealed that it's him in the body bag, and we hear this.
It's funny, Gibbs. Real funny. Especially since...
I guess they found him.
So Gibbs and his partners have the body, and they've tricked the FBI by stuffing DiNozzo in a body bag, which will make Truly Esoteric happy. They've stuffed him into a body bag, put them in the trunk of the FBI car, and the G-men, as they're driving away, figure out,
yes,
we've been had. Those meddling NCIS? Right, yeah, I got you.
Yes, and then they decide to throw him out of a van in the middle of the road instead of literally anything else, arresting him for.
Well, they're kind of mad.
Well, yeah, but I don't know. I feel like arresting one of the people that you're mad at and putting them in a cell and making them not able to work against the other people you're mad at I feel like that would be more effective.
That would be more effective, but I don't know if law enforcement officers at any level are really good with anger management. From what I've seen.
That's a good point.
So
that's a good point.
So this is one of the things, a part of the show that I'm more willing to believe based on just perception.
Yeah, just our own lived experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and then we have, for the third time in about 10 minutes, another conversation about who should have jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the directors of the FBI, NCIS, and Secret Service.
Oh, so the big guys are fighting
operating
it out
under my direct orders.
Agent Todd was also operating under orders.
As was Agent Fornell.
And the problem seems to be that my man succeeded where your two didn't.
Tom, this is no time for turf wars. Not after 9/11. And especially when the president's life may be at risk.
I like to think this is not about turf, Mark. Rather that we all believe we have the right people for the job. We shouldn't be agency directors if we didn't.
You're offering a shared investigation?
I am.
Who leads? Your man?
We do have the body.
That's supposed to be the nice little punchline on that scene.
I did enjoy the big screen again.
The big screen is very nice.
Yeah.
They use the big screen so much. So basically every single one of these conversations either results in, no, NCIS can't have the body, or, okay, NCIS has the body. There's no in between.
So, but compared to the Secret Service and the FBI, is NCIS, or this team, are they kind of presented as being plucky?
I think so. I think that's very clearly they're the underdogs in this fight.
I do enjoy some pluck.
So let me see. So now we're back in the morgue. Finally, they're actually able to do what they've hoped or wanted to, and they have this body. And we hear as Ducky's actual lab assistant is leaving from the morgue, Gibbs asks him, hey, did you get a hold of Abby? He says, yeah. And then Gibbs asks, did you wake her up? And the guy says, no, I called her on her cell phone. It sounded like she was having, quote, one fat party. And they go through the rest of the scene. Ducky encourages Gibbs to go home, get some sleep. And Gibbs responds by taking one of those blue paper towel rolls. At least I think that's what it is. It might be like a foam roll that they use to prop up heads in the morgue. It's one of those two things. Mm-hmm. He grabs that, puts it on one of the morgue lab tables, and then lays down on it.
Yeah, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Goes to sleep.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah. But not before he asks this amazing question, because, again, he's no nonsense and he's old and doesn't understand things.
Mm-hmm. Ducky, why would Abby go to a fat party?
It's FAT, not PHAT.
I guess not. I don't even know which one it would be. I didn't look at the subtitles. But yeah, this is just the beginning of Gibbs just not understanding, man.
Yeah, being a little out of touch. Yeah.
We then basically have the exact same scene again, except it's with Tony and Abby. Tony has found out when looking through a bunch of Trap, the guy that died's stuff, that he was on a bunch of vitamins. And then Abby is like, hey, by the way, if you want, you can sleep. I have a futon in the other room and you can sleep on it. And like whenever they cut to him like going to sleep on it, it's not even a futon. It's just like some pillows on the floor.
Okay. All right.
Okay. After this, we cut to them analyzing all of the results of all their tests and stuff. And Ducky and Abby tell Todd and Fornell how Trap might have died. And this is the section of the show that I like to call, you can tell that these people are smart because they use big words.
My neuropathology exam indicates that our victim succumbed to a cerebral embolism here in the parietal lobe. I also found a number of clots, most of them centered in the renal artery.
Isn't that unusual?
Oh, not at all. In most cases of arterial thrombosis, clots will develop over a period of minutes or hours, spread to the rest of the body.
But what caused them to develop in a healthy young aviator?
Abby?
Well, I did a fibrinogen test. The procoagulant numbers were high, but they weren't off the charts.
I thought she was the cyber expert, but she's also like, or is she?
She's toxicology type.
Okay.
Like she's the chemical stuff, she is also cyber. She is also the cyber girl.
Oh, okay. So
the cyber woman.
She's very talented.
Yeah, she's a multi-hyphenate, really.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
God, like the other thing that struck me while I was watching that again is how weird and not good the editing is.
Mm-hmm.
That was like that really famous part of Taken 3 where it's like 18 different angles and shots just to show Liam Neeson jumping over a fence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that, there was like 12 different shots and it was like 30 or something seconds of footage. It really wasn't that long.
Yeah, the editing was poor. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to show video when, we're kind of starting off on an audio. If we get really good at this, we can actually share these clips as well. It sucked. Just for the people that are listening, it was badly done, and I'm very angry about it.
It's really weird that this is a very well-known show, and it really is just like, it feels just held together. Well, just barely held together.
I mentioned in episode 0 that these guys didn't know if it was going to take off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it did take off. Did you notice an improvement in quality over the seasons?
I guess that there's a pretty decent improvement in quality. I mean, like, there are even like pretty fundamental aspects of this show in terms of the style of editing that aren't present yet. And whenever we get to the first episode that has those, I'll mention them pretty specifically. But like, there is a style that this show takes on and that a lot of the other spin-offs sort of ape on in their own way that's not present here. And it's one of the only things that makes this show even vaguely sort of its own thing. So it's kind of ridiculous how little is here, like beyond just what you're seeing.
Yeah, it'll take them some time to find their footing.
The other things that Abby says at some point is, Abby says the guy was an organic freak. He probably whizzed green, which is kind of gross, but okay. And then she jokingly asks Agent Todd if the Secret Service, quote, ever thought of throwing themselves in front of the president's diet. That's a good one. That one's actually still pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Gibbs, at the end of the scene after Agent Fornell leaves, asks Agent Todd if he can join them on Air Force One, which he's allowed to do, but there's a catch. He can't have his gun. Okay. So he locks it away and then they go off. Although, strangely enough, they go off and then it cuts to an entirely different scene without Gibbs, so I don't know what he's doing during this scene. Like, they leave together, and then there's a scene with Agent Todd. So now the scene with Agent Todd that I was just talking about, she's at a bar. And she's at this bar with her friend and her, her lover, Major Carey, who we've referenced a few times.
And who has recovered, apparently, from his flu.
Who is apparently recovered from having the flu. So she unfortunately is like, hey, because of this, this is a immoral thing because they're working together, so they shouldn't be in this relationship. So they break up sort of amicably, and then Major Carey gets in his car. He's about to start his car.
And it explodes.
See, that's what they want you to expect.
Oh, okay.
That is the expectation. But no, he has the exact same kind of seizure. Uh-oh. He begins foaming at the mouth as the other character, Commander Trapp, at the very beginning of the episode. The exact same thing happens to him.
Well, I'm not a professional detective, but I have been described as an internet sleuth, which is close enough. And
I think so.
I'm thinking the common theme here between those two deaths is Agent Todd.
See? Exactly.
Yeah.
We might be on to something.
They want you to guess, and right now, my guess is Agent Todd.
So now we're back on the plane, back on Air Force One. Gibbs is with Agent Todd. They're just sitting there. Gibbs is drinking water, and Agent Todd is just like, I guess, doing work. And she sort of just keeps talking, and Gibbs is just letting her continue to talk about, hey, I finally broke up with Major Carey. We hadn't been dating for long. We only knew each other from this job. Goes on and on and on. And eventually, this is like one of my favorite line deliveries in the entire show.
When you're on the job 24/7, how else do you get to know someone?
Church.
Church?
Church.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, he just says it's such a... He basically mumbles it. It's...
Yeah. His comic delivery is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's just sort of a weird thing to say. Like, I get that they're seasoned professionals and they have very important jobs, but, there is still such a thing as small talk, even at that level.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
So they're just sort of setting him up to be just in his own way as quirky as the other characters.
Yeah, he's got a little bit about him, and there's a lot more like weight behind his character that develops throughout the first few seasons. But like it feels very throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. So following that part of the conversation, because there's a very important thing that I haven't sort of clued you in on, which is that whenever the first victim died on Air Force One, they shifted over to the backup plane, which has different levels of security, at least in this world. That, you know, the Air Force One they were on in the beginning had digital locks and stuff like that. It could only be unlocked in a certain way. Whereas the backup plane has physical keys or physical locks that you have to have like actual keys for. And Gibbs is like, hey, you know, I need you to tell me every single difference about this plane from Air Force One, because he's starting to suspect all of these differences. And also he's making way too many references to the Harrison Ford movie Air Force One. Because he just like keeps on making these comments about just like, well, hey, that's how they did it in the Harrison Ford movie. Like, why do you have to reference that other than just it's the cultural cachet thing of like, hey, we bet you probably like this thing because you're watching this. So give us points for knowing what that is. Let me see. Okay, so now we're cutting back from Air Force One. We're back in Abby's lab, and she has discovered that that what has been causing these seizures and these strokes is snake venom. That it is a snake venom that is somehow getting absorbed into the skin of these guys.
Okay, all right. So that's an important clue. So we're well on our way to a solution. Okay.
And then DiNozzo then goes and visits or Major Carey's body and is like, "Whoa, I gotta tell Gibbs because this is big news. This is another major step in the case because who knows why this happened." Now, again, immediately back to Air Force One. Todd tells Gibbs about all the differences between the two planes while they're going back and forth. And then Gibbs gets that call from DiNozzo and tells him what poisons were used. And they found out that the two guys used the same dry cleaner.
Okay. All right. It's a little bit of shoe leather. That's classic police work. Okay. Got it.
So then Gibbs immediately after this says like, Tony, what are you doing? Go to that dry cleaner's place. And then this is probably my favorite clip.
I passed that baton to the FBI. This has all the earmarks of Al-Qaeda. Unexpected, well-planned, brilliantly executed. But to what end?
To kill the president?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, to what end?
But also, just like someone, I can't imagine, like maybe now but just hearing somebody say that seriously, this has all the earmarks of Al-Qaeda.
I mean, that struck out to me too. And this is one of those instances where our age difference will be interesting, right? Because I have very clear memories of how the country just lost its mind after 2001, right? And I even, I'm originally from Mississippi. And I even had family in small towns in Mississippi saying that they were afraid that Al-Qaeda was going to like blow up a dam near them or something like that, right?
Oh my God.
I mean, it was utterly ridiculous. I mean, I can't say that at the time I looked around me and thought everyone was a clown because we just didn't know, right?
Right.
But I can say that I had an intuition that people were overreacting, right?
Yeah.
But what had happened on 9/11 was unlike anything we'd ever seen. So it was kind of one of those things where we're like, well, we didn't think the World Trade Center would collapse, so anything's possible, right?
I guess that does make sense. But still, like, I guess now I have the benefit of not necessarily hindsight, but like cultural blindness.
Yeah.
That hearing that only to me speaks of overwhelming paranoia.
And from our position here in 2025, and this was 2003, that seems kind of quaint.
Yeah.
It just seems kind of like they're a little bit naive. And I feel kind of sorry for them. I mean, because it gets worse, but not in ways that they expect.
And probably, I guess, not in ways, if we're talking even about like the real life people, in ways that they would really be able to fight against.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also exposes a little bit of the cynicism of the programmers and the production company itself. They're capitalizing on fear.
Absolutely. So much of this show, maybe, like, I don't know if we have gotten to it yet, but, like, the amount of times in this show where they unironically are just like, we got to get the bad guys.
Yeah.
Like, that idea carries this show for, like, 15 full seasons.
I believe it. And, I have a mental image of the kind of person that would consume this show unironically. It's not a flattering image.
Right after Gibbs gets the news that Major Carey has died, he goes to Agent Todd and basically, like, he grabs her gun off of her, shoves her in a bathroom, and threatens her with it, and is like, hey, he also suspects her because the only link between these two deaths is their closeness to her.
Yeah.
But he doesn't tell her yet that Major Carey died until he's like, he tells her, and then she sort of freaks out, and, like, because of her reaction, he's like, okay, I understand it's not you. He gives her a gun back and is like, hey, it can't be you. Liars can't pale on cue, is what he says.
Oh my God. Okay. All right.
And then he proceeds to have a conversation, and then, well, let me play. This is either my second favorite clip or my first favorite.
Dry cleaner laced their uniforms with poison. Must be an Al-Qaeda sleeper.
Did he say sweep?
No, he said it must be an Al-Qaeda sleeper.
Sleeper. Oh, got it. Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, yeah. This is definitely paranoid.
Oh, yeah.
Let me just say that back then, that was considered a possibility.
Right.
Right. They walk among us. Right. It was almost like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You just didn't know who, it could have been your friend, your neighbor, and so forth. It is utterly ridiculous looking back on it in hindsight. And
it was the closest thing I can think to that is if you're at any gathering of maybe more than 5 people during 2020 and you're like, one of us has COVID.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like, it's going to be one of us.
Yeah, man, I look back on my life. I lived through 9/11 and COVID, and I would just like to try again.
It would be really nice.
I don't think I get a do-over.
Like, this is, by the way, like the last few minutes of the show. So, like, right when this happens, there's a bunch of stuff going down all at once. So after he tells her there must be an Al-Qaeda sleeper, then right as that happens and they get out of this bathroom after talking to each other, another man on the plane has the exact same kind of stroke. He has like a seizure, he's foaming at the mouth, and this random guy, this random reporter, takes this opportunity and opens the armory in the back of the plane, steals an automatic weapon and tucks it inside of his jacket, and then starts walking towards the president's area. And this other guy, this other football holder, is like, hey, dude, I need you to whatever. And like at this exact same time, whenever they discover that this is happening, Gibbs also takes a gun from the armory, which is left unlocked.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so there's like a candy dispenser on Air Force One, but it has automatic rifles? Okay.
Yeah. It's just locked behind 2 little wooden plywood doors. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, okay.
So Gibbs takes a pistol and a clip, and then he follows this guy, and whenever he's like, hey, what's the problem, and then he turns around, and it just so happens that the side that the guy has his gun on, he shoots all the way up through the wall, but he misses Gibbs because Gibbs was standing in his blind spot, and then Gibbs fires off some shots.
Now, are they in the air in Air Force One?
I think so.
Okay.
I think they're in the air.
Usually not a good idea to be...
Yeah, usually not.
Yeah.
I also have noted that Gibbs doesn't appear to have very good trigger discipline. And after this, there's just a little bit of a back and forth. Gibbs has a back and forth with Bear Bauer and is like, man, we're going to be doing paperwork for a week after this, man.
Wait, so he got the guy.
Yeah, he kills him.
So he returned fire. So the guy with the gun that can fire hundreds of rounds a minute missed, and Gibbs
gets him in 3 pistol shots.
Got him in 3 pistol shots. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because he was standing on the side, and whenever you're firing a gun, you can't move your hand, and you can't move it like maybe a few inches or maybe a few centimeters to one direction to hit the person that's sort of vaguely out of your line of sight.
Right.
Even if you're blind firing. Once you have the trigger pulled, it's completely out of your control.
You're committed. Yeah.
Yeah. So after that, the Secret Service director or whatever, or the Bear Bauer guy, is like, hey, Agent Todd resigned. So, that's too bad. She was a good agent. And that leads us to our final clip of this episode, right at the very end. I'm going to let this play really quick.
I heard you quit, Agent Todd.
Happy news gets around fast. Yes, I resigned. It was the right thing to do.
Yep. Well, that crap at NCIS. I won't give you a chance to resign.
Is that a job offer?
I love that musical sting at the end.
Yeah, they sort of set it up so she's going to be a member of the team.
Yes.
The clip here has him kind of walking towards a car that's pulling up. Is that relevant, or is he just about to get hit by a car?
No, so the car stops and then he gets in. Although it's very left unexplained. He just gets in the car and then that's the end of the episode.
So they don't explain Uber was not a thing back then, so you couldn't just get on your phone and order up a car, right?
There's just a redheaded woman in the car.
Of course. All right.
Yeah.
That we never see again.
Not that I am aware of, no.
Okay, and so that's the end of the episode. So all we know about the murderer is that he was just disguised as a reporter.
Yeah, he was disguised as a reporter. Earlier in the show, he has a throwaway discussion with Agent Todd, and that's it. He's just some dude. It is a white guy.
I was going to ask. I had to ask about the ethnicity. I'm sorry, right? But I had to ask. One of the takeaways, kind of post-mortem on this, pardon the pun, is that they may want to do something about their background checks of people that are allowed on Air Force One.
Yeah.
Because you'd think that they would have come up with something.
Yeah, or even just hey, don't just background check them one time. Do it multiple times.
Yeah, maybe they didn't background check him because he's white.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know if that's called affirmative action, but it's like the inverse.
Well, circa 2003, that would not have been a ludicrous thing to say.
I can understand that, yeah.
So you saw this episode. So I've seen this episode through you, and I was not impressed. So you saw this episode, in real time as it was being broadcast at some point, and you saw it, and you thought, I'd like more of that. I would like more of that.
At some point between the ages of 12 and 15. Yeah.
Okay. That's important to keep in mind. That is
the majority of, I'd say, of when I watched this show.
So do you think, we've talked a little bit about how this is a little bit of propaganda, right?
Oh, yes.
And do you think it's almost like a quasi or pseudo recruiting tool?
Well, see, I'm not sure because they never do really discuss how easy or hard it is or isn't to become part of NCIS, because all of these characters that we meet come from wildly different backgrounds. To give some minor character spoilers, we know that Gibbs served as a Marine. We learn DiNozzo's background in the next episode, and obviously Agent Todd is a Secret Service agent. But those aren't necessarily easily accessible jobs.
No.
But I would say that it's definitely meant to be look at all of these kind of cool people having to do cool stuff.
And protecting you.
Yes.
Protecting you.
What you need to know the most is that they're protecting you and they're protecting the men and women of our military.
Given how things turned out with the Iraq War and the war on terrorism, I'll just anticipate in later episodes, they probably just never address any of that, do they?
I couldn't tell you when I stopped watching, because in a way this show sort of becomes background static.
Sure. Yeah.
This is one of those shows, and this is kind of the reason why it's so present in my mind, is because it was one of the things basically before its place got taken by podcasts or YouTube videos that I actually enjoy consuming. That's what these shows are. That's what they best exist for, is for to be on and you can pay attention to for 5 minutes. And then when a commercial comes on, you can keep scrolling on Facebook.
It's like visual and oral spam almost.
Yeah.
In the background.
And especially with how many episodes of this exist, it is just constant. It is very fill in the numbers, and it's very bleh.
Do you like this show?
I don't think so.
Yeah, because I've only seen the one episode through you, and I don't like it so far. And actually, I'm committed to this podcast, even if I decide that I hate the show, because I'm a recovering Catholic. That's part of it. But also, I think it would be an enjoyable experience just to hate watch this show through you.
See, like, I don't even know if hate watch is a strong enough word. Because, like, there are definitely, whenever we get to certain places, there are definitely episodes that I'm going to be like, I hated watching this episode again, probably because I've seen it so many times. Yeah. There's already one that I can think of that I am dreading, but it's so far away that I think it would take literal years for us to get to.
There.
So, like, that, in a way, I'm dreading that. But there are, across however many dozens of hours of content, there could have been a pretty decent trilogy of movies.
I'm kind of surprised it didn't make it into a movie.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest. This show would be much more enjoyable if it were a series of mid to low budget R-rated movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that would end up direct to video.
Yeah.
At some point.
Preferably not starring Steven Seagal, but he can play the head of Mossad or whatever, which eventually will come up. Eventually the head of Mossad will come up.
I can't wait.
I can't wait till we get there. Yeah, my goodness. I guess we're pretty much in the wrap up. Like, we're sort of just recovering from having to ingest this.
Yeah, so I'm wondering actually how we're going to close out these episodes. Like, I think your game at the beginning of the episode of having me guess, if it's NCIS, Freaky Friday, or Ted Bundy, that's a genius. So way to go. Closing these things up, I wonder if we could do something like, who had the best line, or who did we? I'm trying to think. Like, where was the misdirection? I mean, the misdirection in this was Agent Todd, because she was the link between the two. But I'm just thinking, like, at the end of the episode, like, who's your favorite character from there? Who was the breakout character? I don't know. What do you think?
I think maybe, like, our favorite line from the episode could be good.
Well, so I'm a little bit of a disadvantage there because you've seen the entire episode. Right?
Well, I pulled the ones that I found the most entertaining.
Okay, so of the lines that you've clipped and pulled out, I would say my favorite line was when they realized that it was Al Qaeda, and that Al Qaeda had somehow infiltrated Air Force One, and they didn't know why.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, they never necessarily confirm, like, oh, yes, it is Al Qaeda. They just keep saying that they think it is.
That's a good point. For all we know, that reporter could have just been some deranged guy.
Yeah, it was just a guy.
Maybe he just, didn't like the people that he killed. Had nothing to do with the president.
I get, maybe. But, like, how faulty of a plan is it to just be like, well, clearly I'm going to distract people by giving one man a stroke. Then the doctors are going to immediately show up, meaning no one else needs to put their attention on him. Then I'm going to steal a automatic weapon, and I'm going to approach the man that has the nuclear codes, whose job is to defend the president to the death.
Well, yeah, when you put it in those terms, that is ludicrous. I was thinking, as you were describing that, and I'm starting to piece it together, this guy's plan was never directed at the president specifically.
Yeah.
He was just knocking off people around him. So maybe he thought, I'm just going to scare the president.
There is a way, I guess, that he could have gotten to the president eventually. But, like, if you want to get to the president so closely, just, like, figure out a way to become the guy that carries the football.
Well, that's certainly one. That would be deep cover, right?
Right.
As we've seen, this person is capable of deep cover. But it also occurs to me that the reporter, who's the killer, already had access to Air Force One. He's on it, right? And if he's on Air Force One and he was familiar enough with Air Force One to know that there's just a magic closet somewhere where you can just reach in and pull out an automatic rifle, then he already knew all those things, right? And apparently, given the way things turned out, he was okay with it being a suicide mission. So, given those facts, why did he choose to go the dry cleaner route?
Yeah, why did he, that's a great question.
Because it seems like he could have accomplished his task more maybe I'm just too much of a linear thinker. But it seemed like he could have accomplished his task in a much more linear way by just getting the gun and shooting the president.
Oh, yeah, and also, if he's a member of the press, then he gets alone time with the president.
That's true.
Not alone, but, he gets moderated alone time with the president, and sure, they're probably checking his suitcase or whatever, but, oh, you can't bring your suitcase in with the president. Oh no, there was a bomb in my suitcase. Guess it'll just have to remain in the cabin where it'll blow up, make all of Air Force One decompress, and then we'll have to crash.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I'm having a hard time getting past the whole gun closet. Just, there's just some AR-15s in a closet somewhere with brooms and mops.
It was locked.
Okay.
The entire conceit is that they had to create this distraction by poisoning the people in the first place so that they would move over to the other plane, the backup Air Force One, in order to get easier access to the armory closet.
I see. So
so that is a little bit of my own difficulty in retelling.
So the original plane that they were on, which they had to decommission because it was a crime scene, was all that stuff was better secured.
Yes, it had digital locks, which couldn't be manipulated. But the one that they were on during the end scene had just regular locks with keys.
I think the English phrase is, that's too clever by half.
I've never heard that before. That's great.
Yeah, it's a bit elaborate.
It's like, what is it? All those jokes people make about Skyfall.
Yeah.
Where, if you actually trace all of the part of Javier Bardem's, plan, it's absolutely ludicrous that all of those things would happen.
Yeah, but, he has the saving grace of being Javier Bardem. So
that is true.
Yeah.
My goodness, that man. Yeah. So once again, this has been Gibbs It To Me Straight. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you'll join us again whenever we tackle our next episode, which is Hung Out to Dry. If you'd like to contact us, or if you're this is also another thing. If you are a fan of NCIS and you have some particular standout episodes, maybe you could tell us some of those episodes, and then whenever we get to those, we will shout out what you like about those. If you hate a particular actor or aspect, we will also shout those out. You can send any of your comments or thoughts to gibbsittomestraight at gmail.com.
Oh, we have an email address.
We have an email address.
Oh, wow. I can't wait until we have a Patreon and a website. And
it's going to be, it's basically a matter of minutes at this point.
We're going to start a media empire.
It's going to be great.
And it starts with that email address.
And it ends with the presidency.